If there's one activity that leaves great stories to tell grandchildren, it is hunting. Throughout the world, thousands of men and women join in these traditions and plunge deep into the forest to face the adversity of nature. Of course, this is nothing new. Hunting is part of the human DNA. In the past, it was our main way of obtaining food, and today it still represents a tradition that many families adopt throughout their lives. However, on some occasions, hunters end up being hunted by mysterious creatures, deformed animals, and monsters that came straight out of a horror book. Each story represents something unusual, but the one you're about to watch will surpass any you've heard so far. So join us this time and get ready to learn about the experience of two hunters who came across a creature that wasn't meant to exist. Two hunters chased by a wild monster. Our story begins in Sacramento, California, on November 1st, 1879. That morning, the state's press awoke to some shocking news that its inhabitants couldn't believe. Newspapers like the Daily Union had big headlines that threatened the tranquility of the inhabitants. The front pages reflected the alarm of the city over the appearance of a strange creature and, in addition, below that striking headline, there was the story of two hunters who had survived to tell the tale. Their names were Peter Simmons and John Gore, two veteran hunters who were on a great adventure. Their itinerary was to travel through the major forests of the United States, and the one in the Antelope Valley was one of the last on the list. This place had many attractions. It was known for an abundance of wildlife and some of the wildest animals in the country. The Antelope Valley definitely wouldn't disappoint them, although neither Peter nor John knew what their adventure would lead them to near that. According to the men's account, they arrived in the morning in a vehicle that they left parked in the middle of the trail. They were loaded with two accurate rifles and the perfect equipment to take on any wild creature. At first, their exploration took them to the Arias Lakes, where they hunted some ducks and swans. Beyond the lagoon, they encountered larger and fiercer animals such as a bear and a moose. So far, the adventure seemed to be going well. The morning progressed quickly, but the men were still bloodthirsty. So they remembered the instructions that a guide from the nearest village had given them. This anonymous man had told them that at the top of the valley, there was a creature that wouldn't disappoint them. Faced with this enigma, Peter and John began to ascend the valley trail. Along the way, they dodged cliffs, skirted streams, and climbed mounds until they reached a great peak. From there, they had a view of the entire periphery, but there was no sign of the creature. At least, that's what they thought. An unexpected roar put them on guard. They both pointed in all directions with their rifles, but there was no target. The roar seemed to come from an invisible creature. Then, unexpectedly, the largest animal they had ever seen emerged from a large opening in the middle of the mountain they had just climbed. Its appearance was robust and hairy. It had elongated limbs, menacing claws, and it walked upright, like a human, although it was impossible for this creature to be a man. The beast began to climb towards the top of the mountain at an alarming speed. It also had impressive dexterity, something impressive considering the size and weight of this body. It was impossible. Peter and John had been hunters for over 25 years and had never seen anything like it. However, in the face of the danger, the men's experience prevailed and they immediately opened fire on the animal. One of the projectiles hit the beast's arm. Instantly, the creature stopped, impressed and confused. It emitted a growl that paralyzed the hunters' hearts and immediately pounced on them with an unnatural rage. For the first time in 25 years, the hunters were truly terrified. Still, they opened fire again, but the shots missed. Both men missed the opportunity and it was too late. The creature reached John and knocked him to the ground. They rolled on the ground until the hunter was trapped, preventing the beast from tearing his face to shreds thanks to his rifle, which he used as a shield. Saliva and an agonizing roar fell from the beast's mouth. Its strength was superior to John's, and just as it was about to prove it, a shot in the back caused the creature to writhe in pain and flee down the mountain. The hunters made no effort to follow it. Fear had completely paralyzed them. They could barely walk, especially John, whose skin was as pale as snow and who couldn't even formulate any coherent words. Peter and John retraced their steps back to their vehicle, and they didn't allow themselves to put their rifles away until the forest was several kilometers behind them. The experience changed their lives, and from that date on, they gave up their love of hunting forever. Before leaving the village, the Daily Union newspaper had occasion to record the story. A few days later, other media echoed the hunters' statements, and it quickly became a social phenomenon. Within weeks, other hunters tried to find the creature. The police also took an interest in the case, but none succeeded in their mission. The beast had disappeared. Some came to believe that Peter's shot had caused it a mortal wound and it had gone to die in some corner of the forest. This story seems to have some validity, especially since in the following weeks, other hunters found the beast's cave. There were all kinds of animal carcasses inside it, although with blood and excrement, but there was no trace of the beast. However, against all odds, after the newspapers forgot about the events and people went on to live their lives, mysterious disappearances began to be recorded in the Antelope Valley. Tourists would enter the forest and fail to return. The authorities couldn't come up with a logical explanation, and soon after, there were several sightings of a creature very similar to the one that attacked Peter and John. Was it really the same beast? Did it survive the mortal wound? Is it still lurking in some hidden corner of the wilderness? No one knows for sure. From that date to the present, disappearances continue to occur from time to time, and there's always some sighting of a wild animal that seems to walk half upright. The beast could still be alive despite all attempts to wipe it out. Of course, this wouldn't be the first time something similar has happened. There are all kinds of chilling reports and stories that reveal the existence of creatures that escape human logic around the world. Nobody knows how they got there, nor what they are. But one thing is for sure, they are real, quite real. And if you're willing to check it out, you better join us in the following videos.